Hi, I'm Keri Murphy, and welcome to Spotlight, where we showcase phenomenal entrepreneurs and their stories. And today, I'm actually really excited to talk to you about an issue that, as a parent, can be very frightening: sexting. There are so many tweens and teenagers that are sexting without even thinking about the consequences and long-term ramifications of having fun with our phones. And today I get to sit down with my friend and client, Lisa Houle, who's been a criminal attorney for over 20 years, who's on a mission to help bring awareness to this cause. Lisa, thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course.
I know we talk about this a lot because we're both parents.
Yes.
And you have two sons.
Yes.
But before we get into that, tell me a little bit about your background, because you've been on both sides of defense, right?
Yes. So I've been in criminal law for almost 20 years now. The first 15 years of my career, I worked as an LA County Deputy District Attorney, prosecuting mostly sex crimes, violent crimes, domestic violence.
Wow.
And it was a fascinating, rewarding job. But I would say the downside of the job is that you really do see a lot of terrible things. And one of the things that I started to see, both as a prosecutor and now as a defense attorney, is this subject of sexting. This is going on with young people all over the place, at every school, junior high, high school, colleges. It's really frightening. And so you're right, it has become my mission to get the word out.
Because you don't even think about it, right? Like these young kids, really, they're kids,
Right.
Are just thinking it's fun. They don't think anything of it.
Right.
But you actually have seen, like, really the consequences.
Oh, the consequences can be just tragic.
Can you share a little bit about what you've seen?
Absolutely. So there's a quite famous story that happened in 2012. A young girl, 15 years old at the time, in Vancouver, committed suicide after a tragic series of events. Her name is Amanda Todd. She's really an inspiration for the work that I am doing at this point. She was 12 at the time, and this all
12
started.
years old.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this started as a seemingly, well, harmless, but it's really never harmless, flash on a webcam one night to a stranger thousands of miles away.
Gosh.
And, when young people do this, I think they are, first of all, putting far too much trust in the person that they send this to.
Sure.
So this was on a webcam. Little did she know that the stranger on the other end took a photograph of the topless flash. He then shared it with other men, who then started extorting her and saying, if you don't send us photographs, then we're going to put, your breasts all over the internet. And
terrifying.
Truly,
my gosh. Like, for this young little girl.
I can't even imagine what she was going through. And, the tragedy was they did exactly what they promised. And so before she knew it, her breasts were all over the internet. She didn't tell an adult what was happening. She kept it to herself for a very long time. And it turned into just a horrifying, tragic story where she ended up committing suicide. So her story is one of the inspirations. The other part of this is that, yes, I'm a mother.
Yeah.
And, my children right now, well, first of all, they do not have cell phones. I plan on them not having cell phones for a very long time.
Which a lot of kids, that's a whole nother conversation, but a lot of kids get cell phones so early.
Yes, they do. And I get it. There are practical reasons for a kid to have a cell phone, communication with working parents. And I'm right there. I'm a working parent. I understand the need to be able to communicate. But if parents aren't having the conversation with their kids about safe use of cell phones and what not to do with your cell phone, and then this sort of taboo topic, which shouldn't be taboo, there has to be an open dialogue between a parent and their child to understand that, we get it. We've been children. We've been teenagers. We know that there are, hormones and curiosity and peer pressure and just this whole sort of exploration of sexuality. But there needs to be an understanding that asking somebody for a photograph of their private parts and sending somebody a photograph of your private parts, especially when we're talking about teenagers who have no understanding of the emotional expense.
Right.
When you do something like that, you can't ever get that back.
That's the thing, though.
That's
with the internet and phones,
yes.
It's one thing when you're curious as a kid and you're,
yes.
playing behind closed doors. Not that I'm an
Yes.
advocate for that either, but I'm just
Right.
saying that, now we have this exposure.
Oh, yes.
Right? Which can literally, change lives,
Right.
hurt lives.
Oh, yeah.
It's affected some kids getting into college.
Right.
Right?
And it doesn't even have to be, the receiver putting it out on the internet. I mean, there's even stories, locally here where somebody sent a crotch shot to somebody else, and that person turns around and shares it with friends,
Right.
fellow athletes, people in class. And then, that person who sent it to them has no idea that the receiver didn't keep it secret.
Yeah.
And it's now gone around the whole school. So it doesn't even need to be blasted on the internet.
Yeah.
I mean, it can ruin lives just in the simple sharing within one's,
Inner circle.
close inner circle.
Yeah. And it really is to think before you send.
Absolutely.
Right? And
Absolutely.
I love that that's kind of what you're standing for
Yes.
and educating. It's
Yes.
before you send, think longer.
Yes.
Down the line
Right.
of what that
how could this go wrong? And again, I think that teenagers, they have a sort of a sense of wanting to trust the person that they're sending it to.
Right.
But oh my gosh, if I could just get them to listen and understand that what you think is this serious relationship right now,
Right.
so much changes.
Yeah.
This is high school or junior high.
And yet it's so hard because when you're in it, it feels so real.
Right. And you want to, you want to be accepted, and you want to be loved, and you want that other person to accept you and feel validated, and the thrill factor and all of that. But again, the long-term consequences can just be so disastrous.
So Lisa, how are we going to change this?
Well,
as a parent, right? And as someone who wants to go in and educate the young people.
Right.
Where do you start?
So my plan, which we are putting into action right now, is twofold. It is sext education for parents so that they can understand, number one, this is absolutely happening.
Right.
And you can't turn a blind eye. You need to deal with this. This is going on. And even if your child isn't involved as a sender or receiver, your child is going to hear about these things going on at school.
Yeah.
So wouldn't you much rather start that conversation with your child than have your child find out at school?
Hey, Mom, guess what I saw today? Or guess what I heard today?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So, I would much rather be the one to start that conversation with my kids. And I think other parents want to be the ones to start that conversation with their kids. So the goal is to start the sext education with parents to understand what is sexting. It can be just the conversation, the words on a phone,
right.
But it can also be sending and receiving images. It can be sending and receiving videos.
Yeah.
It can be sending and receiving full-on pornography.
Yeah.
Which,
it's so scary to think that's happening
Yeah.
with these, 8 to 12-year-olds and then teenagers. Never mind the adults
Right.
out there, but this
Right.
is really a problem.
Right.
Because it's so accessible.
Right.
So you are actually going to teach parents how to have these conversations?
Yes. How to have the conversation, how to identify what it is, how to talk to your kids about what this is, and help them start to understand other people's tragic stories so that they don't have a tragic story. That's really what this is about, is preventing another tragic story, because it's happening so frequently that I feel like, this is my job as a criminal lawyer. I have to help stop this.
Right.
I'm aware of this epidemic, and it's my duty and my job to help put an end to this, because, there shouldn't even be 1% of children out there doing this.
Right.
The percentages should be 0. And they just aren't.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. So,
No.
Lisa, when you go into schools and you're talking to these young people, what do you say to them? How do you help them understand the long-term impact versus the pressure and the fun? Because it's almost like, the say no to drugs. That sounds great, but when it's constantly in front of me, it's really a testament of will and confidence and parenting. And
Absolutely. So I think, the first thing is that I have to acknowledge that I understand what they are going through. Again, I get it. Hormones, curiosity, peer pressure, wanting to fit in. Like, that's what everybody wants. And so I have to acknowledge that is a concern up front with teenagers when I'm talking to them. But then I have to get them to then take a step back and think, this particular thing that I might be thinking about doing, sexting.
Right.
Is that really going to get me the things that I'm looking for, like acknowledgement and appreciation and acceptance by others? And that's really what I want them to start thinking about. Is sending or receiving a body shot, is that going to get you, the acceptance that you're looking for?
Yeah.
No. And then I also want them to understand, not only will it not get you that, but it also might get you a criminal investigation.
Yeah, so let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So what have you seen from that point of view of being, on the other side and representing some of these sex crimes?
Right.
What can you share with us?
Well,
What have
I
you
can
seen?
tell you that the police are taking these cases very seriously. Okay, the police cannot say to themselves, "Oh, kids being kids." They absolutely cannot do that. They can't turn a blind eye. So they have.
Is it child pornography at this point?
Absolutely it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely it is. And, the police have a duty and an obligation to, if they are made aware of a crime, they have to investigate it.
Sure.
And so then, the prosecutors come in then to evaluate whether or not this is something they're going to file formal charges. And prosecutors are also taking these cases very, very seriously. People are not just getting like a slap on the wrist, don't do this again. No, it's a very, rigorous, sometimes we can get like a diversion where they don't get criminal charges filed against them, but they have to go through a very, very long program to understand that what they're doing is wrong. They have to go through counseling. They have to have, meetings with the police investigators on their case and the prosecutors that hopefully aren't going to file charges against them.
Right.
I mean, this is
something
like
you feel is so
serious
innocent,
business,
right?
Yes.
Can really be damaging
Yes.
long term.
Yeah, and then think about the victims in these cases.
Right.
The person who sends the photo. I mean, just again, the emotional impact for everybody that's involved in this, both the suspect, the victim, the parents of both those people. I mean, can you imagine the shock of just finding out either that your child is under investigation for this, something that they didn't realize was wrong, or your child is the person that sent the photo,
right?
And now it's gone through the whole school.
I mean, I can't
just,
imagine. I don't want to imagine, but
it is a horrible thing to have to think about.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's horrifying to think about.
Well, thank you for taking a stand and helping educate and spread the word. I'm sure there are parents out there right now that are terrified and going to go steal phones from their kids.
Right.
What is the next step someone would take if they want to learn more or get to know more about your programs?
So to go to my website, lisahoule.com.
Which we'll have the link right below here.
So there they can find out, both the programs. So the program for parents, which is sex education, to help bring awareness to this issue. And then also Before You Push Send, which is really for the teens, to get them to take a step back and think about, is this really a good decision?
Right.
I want people to through this program learn to really think before they push that button.
Yep.
Because I really don't see any good reason, especially at this age, to be doing this. It's just not worth the risk.
And you've seen the consequences.
Oh,
right?
yes, have I seen the consequences. And they can be tragic.
Yeah.
Really tragic.
Lisa, thank you
so
much.
Of course.
And I know this is a bit of a deep subject, but it's an important one. And the more education and awareness we can have around any topic, the better. So I really encourage you to send this to a family member, send this to a parent, send this to a teen, and let's open some eyes to something that can seem so innocent, yet can cause some really long-term detrimental ramifications. So thank you so much for watching this interview. Please share it. And again, post your comments because we really love hearing from you as well. As always, remember, it starts with you. It starts with you being a beacon, sharing information. And so please take a moment and share this interview. And as always, remember to keep dreaming it, living it, and being it. Until next time.